Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayan Namaskritya Naram Chay Narottam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamati Nashtakrai Shubhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Shri Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Nashtakrai November 1973, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila. Scores of men and women were going out every day to distribute books. One November day, the devotees of the New York City temple broke the ISKCON world record by distributing 13,200 pieces of literature. On the same day, they also distributed 15,000 pieces of prasada. The ISKCON total for 1973 was 4 million or 41,69,000 books sold. When Srila Prabhupada received these figures, he replied to Rameshwar, I have faith in your words that next year the figures will be far beyond what they were last year. It is the nature of the spiritual energy. It's always increasing if we just apply our energy. Early in January 1974, Srila Prabhupada again returned to Los Angeles. One morning he gave a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture stressing book distribution. There is no literature throughout the universe like Srimad Bhagavatam, he said. There is no comparison or competition. Every word is for the good of the human society, each and every word. Therefore, we stress so much in the book distribution. Somehow or other, if the book goes in one's hand, he will be benefited. At least he will see. I've taken so much prize, let me see what's there. If he reads one shloka, his life will become successful. If he reads one shloka, one word, this is such a nice thing. Therefore, we are stressing so much. Please distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. So it is for the good of the human society. And that's like that's what Prabhupada says. It's not ISKCON is making money out of it, larger money out of it. No such thing. Devotees go out, distribute, whole day they're standing outside, whether it is snowing or it's hard, raining, and they're distributing. Because this pleases Prabhupada, this pleases Krishna. The 1974 began with what appears to be a serious setback. The Supreme Court ruled against Vietnamese war protesters distributing political leaflets in private malls. Citizens of non-profit groups, religious included, could solicit on private property only with the permission from the proprietor. The malls that the book distributors had frequented were suddenly off limits. So they just couldn't go because Supreme Court had put this limitation only at the private property with the permission of the proprietor. The same constitution that barred the devotees from private property, however, gave them access to public property. And when ISKCON devotees filed a lawsuit against the city-owned Las Vegas airport, they won an immediate injunction on the basis that the airport was denying them their right to free speech. This ruling promised to open a new era in book distribution with possibilities of legalizing Sankirtan in all major airports. So yes, in America, see, every country has different laws, and even in every country, sometimes cities, you just have to deal differently. Like in Delhi, when at the Hanuman Temple, Connaught Place, when we were doing book distribution, so sometimes police will be in the round and they would say, have you taken permission? If you haven't taken permission, just wind up your table and go away. It cannot be here. Their problem actually was the beggars. The beggars would fight with us because we were taking away their share. Tuesdays is a big day for them, and Tuesdays when we would set up a book table because that is when the crowd would come. And they would fight with us, no, you're taking away our share, people buy books from you, they don't give us the money. And I say, okay, and that's only 4 Tuesdays, only just month of December. We're not going to come rest of the year. And they make good money on the beggars there. And police has a cut from the beggars also. So sometimes police would come, oh, you have to wind up, you cannot do this, you don't have permission. So I once went to the SHO of that area and I asked him for permission. And he told me that I know you guys are doing good things, but I cannot give you written permission. This is not allowed. You just do, nobody will bother. I said, just tell your police guys, don't, cops, don't bother us. That's all. You're not doing anything illegal or immoral. Just distributing books. That's all. So here in America, they filed a case and then they got the permission. But in India, we don't get this kind of permission because then the problem is they say, if we give you permission, then we have to give other groups also permission. We are not going to do that. This is not what we are for. You do it, we will not stop you. That's all. Devotees saw this as proof that Krishna was working through Prabhupada to increase book distribution. No previous spiritual master had ever distributed Vedic literature on so great a scale. This was another sign that Srila Prabhupada was Krishna's empowered representative. And by the devotees' efforts to follow Prabhupada's order, Krishna was empowering them. But only if they were willing to go through the trials of surrender and renunciation. So the trial will always be there for us because Krishna has to purify us. He has to make us surrender and be detached from everything else. Prabhu, I went out one day to the airport and walked up to one black man and said, "Excuse me, sir." And bam, he punched me right in the face and knocked me down. At that moment, so many thoughts went through my mind. I could just hear Tripurari's words ringing in my ears from the class that morning. We must be determined. So I just said to myself, well, I'll just stand right back up and keep trying. I stood up and I got the inspiration to just turn around and try to hand the next person one of Prabhupada's books. See, this is also can happen. Black man just hit him, punched him right in the face, knocked him down. They, in America, they are big people. They're very strong, strongly built. And if he's beating somebody, just one punch. And if it had happened to somebody like me, I would have died. Prabhu is still big body. He could take that punch. But this also happens. Another time, a husband and wife approached me, but the husband didn't want anything to do with me. When the women saw that the book was spiritual, she stopped and said, "What's this book about?" I said very bluntly, "This book explains birth and death and what's beyond." She said, "Oh." Then she turned to her husband and said, "Please buy it." But he said, "I don't want it. Come on, let's go." She said, "Please." But her husband said, "You buy it." And he walked off. So she stayed with me and said, "Could you tell me a little more about this?" I started to explain the book. And then I said, "Where are you coming from?" She said, "I'm coming from Rochester." Rochester is in New York. Then she revealed to me that she was coming from the Mayo Clinic and she had terminal cancer and was going to die. She said, "I desperately want to read this." She gave me $10 and said, "Thank you very much." Then she took the book and ran off. So, yes, situations like this, and somehow Prabhu, he just said this book explains about birth, death, and what's beyond. And that lady was going to die soon because she has cancer. A little later, she came back and found me and shook my hand and thanked me. These kind of experiences the devotees would have day in and day out gave us a feeling of being like emissaries or representatives of something very special. By this, we became more attached to Srila Prabhupada and to executing his work. We would see these miracles take place. Keshav, I used to distribute books in the San Francisco airport. I thought that this airport was particularly difficult, and that if I could be in LA, I could probably distribute as many books as Tripurari. I was a little proud. Then I got the chance to distribute with him. I'm very outgoing and gregarious, so I don't have any problem stopping people or anything like that. but half an hour, and then an hour went by, and Tripurari had distributed 5 and then 10 books, but I couldn't get anybody to stop and shake my hand even. It was incredible, but I knew it was because I was too proud. Another hour went by, and still no one would stop and shake my hand. I was bewildered because I wanted to pass out Prabhupada's books. Finally, I just sat down out of frustration. I was nearly crying. Tirupari came up and preached to me. He told me I should pray to Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda in times like this, not to worry about it, just that this happens. So I got it together, and then about 10 to 15 people in a row came and talked with me, and some of them took books. So when we discussed it afterwards, we could understand that we were just instruments in Lord Chaitanya's hands. This is how we developed the Sankirtan philosophy. Through the book distribution, we came to realize who Prabhupada was and to appreciate him more. So yes, so we do realize Prabhupada's position, his books, his purpose, and without his mercy, we cannot do book distribution. Lamanglatika. All day I would stand at the top of the stairs, and thousands of people would come by, and we would distribute hundreds and hundreds of books. We used to take lines from Prabhupada's books. The Rari used to talk about the Swamis taking milk from water. So we used to use that a lot in approaching someone. We would say how these great sages used to know how to separate milk from water, separate the essence. We also said the pictures were windows to the spiritual world. We would say this book is like the brilliant sun that will drive away the darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali. So different places, different approach, different strategy would work. I found the best way to distribute the books was to use Prabhupada's own words. Prabhupada said if we read one line to someone, that person can make 100 times his spiritual advance. One time a devotee complained to Prabhupada that people were throwing some of the books away. But then we could understand that Prabhupada wanted them distributed on a large scale. Not that you kept the book for a special person you thought might be intelligent enough to read it. Because Prabhupada said, if they read only one line, they would be very much affected. So we could understand that Prabhupada wanted mass distribution, not that we just kept them for the special right person. No, just go for it, distribute it to the master. Sura. Vaisheshika was selling books in the airport. He would walk up to people and say, well, how are you doing, sir? All glories to Shri Krishna Sankirtan movement, the prime benediction for humanity at large, which cleanses the heart. He was repeating the Shikshashtakam prayers of Lord Chaitanya right out of book. And yet he was selling books. The books had pictures of Krishna and devotional scenes on the cover. And sometimes some devotees couldn't understand how people could relate to these books. But Prabhupada wanted them distributed, and he was saying that we should preach on the merit of the book. When a devotee asked Prabhupada what we should say to distribute the books, Prabhupada replied, Krishna Sudhamo Pagate, which is the verse that says that the Srimad Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, and that it has arisen just to give people religion in this age of darkness. So we were also repeating that verse and distributing books on faith. So Krishna Sudhamo Pagate. When Krishna, Bhagavatam says, when Krishna went back to his spiritual body, to his dham, he left Srimad Bhagavatam for us. So this is the means by which we can rectify or purify ourselves and make ourselves qualified to go back to the spiritual world, to be with Krishna. We would go out and see the people actually becoming struck by Krishna. And they would see that the devotees were very sincere and serious, and they would become impressed. Daily on Sankirtan, we would see people appreciating Prabhupada's books. There was also harassment, but Prabhupada had talked about it, that there was always difficulty. So everything was there from Prabhupada to confirm whether whatever realizations we had. The Prabhupada said a book salesman would sometimes have difficulty because he will be sometimes accepted and sometimes rejected. But he tolerates. So about devotees distributing books at the airports. Once Srila Prabhupada was giving lecture, and in the lecture it was mentioned in Vaikuntha, all the Vaikuntha-vasis, they go on airplanes from one place to another. So one devotee asked Prabhupada, so Prabhupada, if the airplanes are there in Vaikuntha, there must be airports. Prabhupada said, yes. He said, can we distribute books at those airports? So Prabhupada said, yes, why not? Well, I don't think there are airports because everybody would have airplane in their homes or in their palaces in Vaikuntha. But anyway, so devotees are so enthusiastic. We want to distribute books at every airport in the universe or outside the universe. In the airport, we met professors, lawyers, all kinds of people who would stop and talk. They would challenge, and we would constantly have to defend Prabhupada's books and his movement and speak up on behalf of Prabhupada, more so than we were just kids out on the parking lots, talking to women and begging 50 cents for a pack of incense. We were presenting Prabhupada's books to the scholars, coming into contact with Mayavadis, scientists, businessmen, people who were very sharp in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and San Diego. People, they were very sharp and hard, and just by having to spiritually combat them and defend the movement, we became more mature in our understanding of Prabhupada's books and how to present them in such a way that we could convince even people we didn't want to be convinced, who didn't want to be convinced. We had to study Prabhupada's books. So, yes, first we have to study, and then we have to distribute. Then we are convinced and we can convince others. But yes, sometimes devotees, either they are lazy or they don't have time to study. But Krishna always helps. One devotee was telling me, he was Pujari in Bombay temple. And he said, I don't know how to study. I have no interest in studying books. All I do is service, serve the deities. Cook for the deities, dress the deities, do the aarti, clean the temple. He said, this is what I like. So marathon time came, and President told everybody, you have to distribute books. So this Pujari, he said, okay, you cannot go outside because you have so much of service, but you distribute books from the altar. Pujari was like, how can I distribute books from the altar? And Bhagavad Gita that too. I don't know anything in Bhagavad Gita. So he was telling the one person, so many people come to take darshan. So the Pujari told him to take one Bhagavad Gita. And the person said, okay, I'll take one copy if you tell me one shloka from Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. Now that Pujari, he didn't know any shloka, he didn't know anything. So what he said was, when we do Tulsi Parikrama, we say, no, Yani Gani Cha Papani. So he remembered that only. He said, oh, Yani Gani Cha Papani Brahmatyadikani Cha. And the person bought the book. So yes, these things can also happen. But best is study and then listen. In 1974, several new parties formed just for distributing books. The Prabhupada had been traveling as an emissary from Los Angeles, but now, with Srila Prabhupada's permission, he formed a Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, Sankirtan party of some leading book distributors. The BBT distributors stationed themselves in various airports around the country, creating a significant increase in book distribution. Your entire program is approved by Prabhupada wrote to Tripurari. When Tripurari asked if he could take sannyas, Prabhupada replied that he was already doing more than any sannyasi. In one letter, Prabhupada called him the incarnation of book distribution. See, Prabhupada called him incarnation of book distribution. So much distribution he must have done. Book distribution took another great stride forward when Tamal Krishna Goswami, Srila Prabhupada's zonal secretary in India for 4 years, returned to the US. Joining with his friend Vishnujan Swami, he helped form the Radha Damodar Sankirtan party, traveling in a bus with Radha Krishna deities to distribute books and hold festivals all over the US. Sees the enthusiasm. Dhamal Krishna Goswami. When we first began the Radha Damodar party, our idea was to make as many devotees as possible by holding festivals at which we chanted Hare Krishna and distributed prasadam. After Krishna sent so many nice young men, it was difficult to keep them always engaged. Then suddenly a letter arrived from Srila Prabhupada, in which he said that the kirtan of book distribution was better than the kirtan of public chanting. This transcendental instruction changed the course of our Radha Damodar party. From then on, I concentrated more and more on book distribution, and this gave Prabhupada greater and greater pleasure. I had been in India for 4 years, but our main program had been enrolling like members. But now that I was in America, Srila Prabhupada was reminding me that preaching meant to distribute his books. So I became inspired that our party should distribute so many books that it equal all of other book distribution of the rest of ISKCON worldwide. Day and night I was thinking of how to get out more and more books and thus overflood America with transcendental literature. Srila Prabhupada wrote me that this was his real ambition, to turn all of America into Vaishnavas. So the competition was going to happen. This traveling Sankirtan party, they wanted to distribute so many books that it would compete with the scores of ISKCON worldwide. Until we formed our Radha Damodar party, the method of distributing books had been that an individual would be given either a large, medium, or small book according to the size of the donation. But Prabhupada told me that of all types of book distribution, to distribute his large books was most important. So I was always considering how to increase the number of large books. The problem was that people were willing to give small donations, but rarely would they give us large enough contributions to avoid giving them a large book. Then Krishna gave me the idea that by adding together a few small donations from a number of persons, at least one of them would be given a large book, while others could be given a Back to Godhead magazine or a small book. By this method, we were able to increase the distribution of big books tremendously. Prabhupada fully approved of this idea. As long as the book fund received payment for the books, Prabhupada allowed us to pass them out as quickly as we could, irrespective of the size of donation. Thus, our Radha Damodar party was able to distribute as many as 50,000 big books in a single month. That's a lot. That's a lot of distribution. What devotees were doing it. Okay, I guess I can stop here. See anybody have questions or comments. Okay. You all are safe and wonderful. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare
Ram.
Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.